Good morning and welcome to the Awaken Divergence podcast. I'm Christopher Barber and I am just continuing on my series of the 6 stages of ADHD, which describes the journey I took until from when I was first diagnosed until now with my ADHD journey. The 6 stages, as I just want to provide as a recap, is we have the discovery stage, the hopeless victim stage, the magic pill stage, the realization stage, and then the healing and awakening stages. So, once again, that's the first stage is discovery, the second stage is hopeless victim, the third stage is magic pill, the fourth is realization, the fifth is healing, and the sixth is awakening. Welcome again to the Awakened Divergence podcast. I'm joined with Imran Begg from the Sovereign Journey, and today Imran and I are going to discuss stage 5, healing, and stage 6, awakening. So just get ready. Last week we discussed the realization stage, which let's see. I mean, realization is when you're on the magic pill and you realize that for the benefits it provides, there's a lot of non-benefits that it's also providing that are making your life way worse. Imran and I deep dived that last week. And Imran, do you have anything else you want to share from realization for our listeners?
No, morning everyone. And thank you for having me again, Christopher. As a recap for realization, like I said, I've gone down the route of non-medication. So my realization was just more around just gathering what my thoughts were and more around how much my mind was racing. In summary, my realization was that I have a lot of thoughts going through my mind. It was a disorganized mind. And as I come more to understand the ADHD label, before that, it was just completely uncaged. It was running riot. It was consuming me. My symptoms were at an all-time high until I realized that I could get more control of my thoughts now that I had the label. And the realization of having a label was a bit icky at first, which we mentioned in the last episode. But the more I sat with it, and I've really taken my time with it, I saw so many things online where people are like, I just want to achieve and achieve and achieve. I had actually hit a sort of midlife crisis point myself where I was completely burnt out from doing things that didn't bring me joy, or now that I'm more in tune with my mind, my thoughts were just so out of control. I was being burnt out from thinking. I was thinking about thinking about thinking.
Oh,
And if that
wow.
makes any sense to anybody listening or watching, thinking about thinking is exhausting. Until I realized I needed to have systems in place. I needed to get control of my emotions. I needed to label emotions. And that's where we are now. We're talking about how, off the back of that realization stage, how can we take this forward and live a meaningful life, purposeful life, not being at the mercy of our symptoms day by day, night by night.
Exactly. Not being at the core of it, not being at the mercy of our minds,
Yeah.
um, which I feel is a large majority of the the task paralysis, the lack of focus, the lack of motivation, is we do not understand that we are in control of our minds and we let the mind control us. Um, I see that a lot with a lot of people's Instagram posts about ADHD, and I've been there. I've lived it. I was I was in that stage of task paralysis at the mercy of my mind. I was at that stage of racing thoughts at the mercy of my mind, but it was through only growing and entering through that upset, entering to through and pushing through that resistance through mindfulness practice that I was able to tame that monkey mind. Um, I know you've had a similar journey.
Yes. Mine hasn't been around meditation because I'm still learning that part. And we've worked on a few parts ourselves to say this is how you try and conquer that. But I wanted to go back to the examples that people we see online, even that task paralysis. Let's put an example to that. The example is you know you have a washing load to complete. Now, to break down that task, task paralysis means you only acknowledge the fact that you need to do your washing, i.e., it needs to be in the washer. Now, task paralysis is that we don't know how to break down that task into smaller steps. The first one is allowing our minds to have the time to complete that task. The first step of that task for me in my personal life is I want to make sure that I've actually cleared the drying rack first. So when I do my washing, I've got somewhere to put my washing, right?
Hmm.
That when I came into a task paralysis was I would do nothing. I knew the washing needed to be done, but because I knew there was a steps ahead and I didn't plan for it, or now that I'm in a more balanced state, I would do nothing. Which at the end of a day, task paralysis consumes you from an emotional standpoint where you feel so guilty for not doing something in your day. All it required was a little bit of planning, managing my time. So what washing looks like now, I know as Americans and Europeans, we've got different terms for it. So we'll work that out, right?
Yeah.
For me, washing, I think you call it laundry, is it?
Yes. Yes.
Right, laundry. The whole act of laundry, let's talk about that. Now, because I know how much time it takes up in my head, I make sure first that there's nothing that needs to be put away from the previous load because I plan that time. I then put the laundry in to wash. I then set myself a timer. There's obviously a timer on the actual device to say it's going to be done, but I set myself a timer to put the laundry out. Now, whoever has a dryer, amazing. My dryer isn't amazing, so I have to plan for that time. And really, there are three or four steps in that. And task paralysis means you know you have laundry to do, but you don't do it because steps one, three, and four haven't been accounted for in your day. Adding to the pressure of a normal day, if you're doing this by yourself, or if you even if you're in a family settings, there's lots to unpack. But let's talk about an individual for me in my sense. If I don't plan for that in my day, I then don't allow space for anything else in my day. Like, for
True.
example, if I don't do that task properly, which is only four steps, and I had to actually write it down, I was like, where am I going wrong with this task? Why is it so huge? Until I wrote it down and I went, oh, my task paralysis was I didn't have anywhere to put the laundry after it was done because I hadn't put the previous laundry away. Unlock. So I went, okay, now that I've made time to do the laundry, I first make sure that the previous laundry is away, packed neatly, not just on my bed. Task one, put the laundry on. Task two, put the right detergent in. Remember to do that. Put it on the right timer. Remember to do that. We're on task three now. I then go about other parts of my day that I have planned. I'm not just sitting and waiting for the laundry to finish. I have other plans and tasks to do in my day. When the timer goes off, I know I can complete that task now because I did stage one, which was I put the laundry away from the previous one, winning. Task paralysis, when I didn't have those stages written down and when I didn't plan for anything, at the end of the day, I would feel drained from just knowing I had a task to do. Do you have a similar experience?
Oh yeah. Um, I think the most stressful one that I've overcome in my healing stage, for sure, is like getting ready for the next day.
Yes.
Um, and it was just so chaotic of like, what am I gonna wear? What am I gonna do? Like, and I'd forget my keys. I'd start forgetting my wallet. I forget my phone. I forget my laptop, you know. But then, just like the laundry, when I thought out the steps that needed to take place, which is first things first, my where am I going to put all my stuff? Okay, I'll put it by the counter. So I make sure my work backpack's there. I make sure on the counter I have my wallet, my badge for work, my car keys. I then make sure I have my lunchbox there. I make sure the lunches are in the refrigerator. And then I make sure all my supplements are ready to go in my bag. That way, when I wake up, all I do is get up, mix my morning drink, turn around to the refrigerator, grab the meals out of there, put them in the lunchbox. Everything's right in front of me, so it's in sight, in mind. There's the key, in sight, in mind. So if we and then I'm ready to go for the day. So if we look at the two different scenarios here that we just described, it's insight in mind and break things down to manageable small steps. And in the
Absolutely.
process of breaking it down to small steps, you don't have to sit there and figure them all out at once. Just start moving forward and then be like, oh, wait, I can't do this because I need to do that. Like if somebody's not unloading the dishwasher and the dish sink's full of dishes, I can't load the dishwasher. So I get my son to unload the dishwasher and he does it in the morning. So by the time I get home, I can load the dishwasher. There's nothing stopping me. And that's what I
That's right.
think a lot of the task paralysis is not the we're not leveraging our own creative abilities to be curious about the situation to do the pre-planning that I know we have the like awesome power to do to then figure out the steps. Because I guarantee you, from our listeners, have you ever just been able to describe little steps of a solution to your friends and your family and be like, man, if I could just do that myself, but it helps them, but you feel like you can't do it, but you have the power. You do. It just takes compassion and going slow and just having a growth mindset, which I think for us with ADHD, that's our superpower once we get over what our minds do. That really is.
Exactly that. The thinking, what you've described is you've taken the thinking out of the process in that
Yes.
once you've described the process, you know what's coming before the actual task because a lot of my life I've lived thinking I'm very capable. And I think a lot of listeners will think you are capable and you are capable. The capability comes under question when you miss simple tasks. And that's because it's out of sight, out of mind, a similar phrase to what you just said, Christopher. Until you write those down and practice it, and the practice and the doing is exactly that. Mine was the laundry example and also getting ready for work the next day example. There is no thinking involved. So we now are less likely to forget our keys and our laptops and whatever it is because we've planned for it and we have taken that time to think about the tasks. What I described as a laundry, which is an ad hoc task. It might not be a daily task, but it's an
Yep.
ad hoc task. You described a daily task. Now, if we break down at the time of day you're trying to make that decision ready for the next day, it will give you an insight into how we are going to be taking our coaching calls. What you've said, Christopher, at the end of the day is where you are always naturally, generally more tired.
Yes.
Doing that at the end of the day without planning, you will likely not do. I likely didn't do it. I didn't do it for a long time because I hadn't managed my energy throughout the day. And the energy came from thinking about thinking.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I laugh about it now, but the fact that we can plan for the next day gives us momentum to be like, okay, the next day is achievable because we started it the right way. And when you read self-help books and when you read momentum books and anything about motivation, that motivation is so key you have a bit, when you have a system in place. Plenty of books out there about what system fits you and what rings to your ears and things like that. But what we've described is the practical parts of it going right because we've done it so wrong before. And
Hmm.
the amount of emotional toll it takes on you, on your body, that you haven't done something all day means it carries on into the next day, which is what we are trying to eliminate and stop. And I'll probably finish on this before you go on to your next point. It took me a little while to build up my bank of self-love. I call it that, where I got it wrong a few times, but I was not my own criticality level just went down notch by notch because I just kept saying to myself, Imran, be kind to yourself. You might not have got this right, but you didn't get it wrong,
Yep.
right? So there's a step
Mhm.
in that. It's like that 1% thing that I've heard it in work terms. I've heard it in people's life. Just be 1% better. Truly, 1% for our ADHD minds. we never think of because we think on such big and grand scales of 60, 70, 80%, that
Mhm.
1% is truly the change. And for me, it was being nicer to myself, thinking if I'd forgotten something, fine, note down what part of the process I had forgotten, and the next day it will make it a little bit better. But I put some pressure on myself to be like, I've found this out now. What do I do about it? I can't no longer ignore it because now I know that I have this label. Now I know that I have an energy issue. I now know I have a focus issue. But what can I do to make it a little bit better for the next day? And it snowballs and it gets better and better. And
Mhm.
that all comes down from being kind to yourself. In our previous episode, we talked about you putting fires out at work, and your self-talk was so good. You've got into a place of such good self-talk where you're like, Christopher, I'm fine. Everything will be fine. Let's gather our senses and let's move forward. And it's similar to our home lives as well and our personal lives.
Exactly. And those are the signs of healing. Okay. When you start not being afraid, pushing through, but with not only determination and taking action on small levels, little steps,
Yes.
um, and then having compassion with yourself and loving yourself enough that if you miss a step, you don't beat yourself up. You don't invoke the shame. Um, you use that as energy to improve your process. But yes, the whole thing that we're talking about here is how do we remove the thinking? How do we save our cognitive bank of energy so that through the day we don't waste it on trying to get laundry done, trying to get prep for the next day. There's many other tasks that our brain needs that energy for that if we waste it on those simple things that we can automate through habits and routines and rituals, um, you'll have that bank of energy to do other great, amazing, creative things. You just won't be burnt out. But for a
Amazing.
lot of it, it's just taking that first step.
Yes. And one thing I did want to mention as well is let's talk RSD. Let's talk rejection sensitive dysphoria for yourself. I call it like an inversion. When you don't achieve the things that you think you have wanted to achieve in the day and not even completing a task. For me, my RSD was at an all-time high and it was self-destructive because I knew once I got into my healing phase that I wanted to prioritize that. I prioritized not feeling bad about a lot of things, and I listed them down, whether it was in my personal life or at work. I listed them down and be like, okay, I know I continuously feel the same fabric of guilt and shame every time I don't do X.
Mhm.
What can I do to make that a little bit better? And then I worked through that list. And now, because I am so kind to myself and the way I talk to myself, RSD has reduced massively. Until I found out about RSD and ADHD, I just thought I was sensitive. Not just sensitive, very sensitive, not just very sensitive, angry in some cases. In not angry in some cases, I'll just be off the hook type of how, why is that even, why are you even telling me that? Who are you to tell me that? Because I have that same self-talk.
Yeah.
So RSD for me, I chipped away at. I did the 1% with the RSD. I chipped away at what scenarios I always used to feel RSD in. Anytime I used to feel rejected by myself or scenarios, I was able to map out where all of that was in my day. And it's down, like you said, habits. It's down to tracking habits. But I don't want to overwhelm people. I think doing that 1% over a couple of weeks and months can change your year. And
Yes.
whenever I used to hear that dreaded, what are your New Year's resolutions? I was still stuck in the year before, trying to work out where all of it went wrong. So when I came to a place of thinking, right, now I know I want to work on RSD, I made that my goal for the year. and I chipped away at it, and it helped my healing phase a lot. Can you talk on that part as well around RSD and how you used to feel when you used to feel the rejection or the emotion just being overwhelming?
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. I would always expect that people's reactions would mirror my reactions for things, and that would trigger my RSD. Now, through understanding, like, what I would do is project that they are like me exactly, so therefore they must react the way I want them to react, which is a complete delusion. So once I got over that delusion, especially with my wife, because she's just not as excitable as me. Um, and once I got over that and just let her be her and me be me, so like I could be all excited and stuff. And if she wasn't, that was fine because she's different from me. That's a
Hmm.
healing part of RSD. RSD becomes bad when you just get stuck in your head and you're not questioning some of your outcomes. And what's interesting about this is these are again signs of healing. Um, I can tell you right now that this week I was looking through autism questions for like people like that would be asking people with autism, and I literally it was scary because some of the questions were like somebody was spying on my life. But from the scenarios, I was like, yeah, it used to be like that, but I figured out a way around it. Like, and
Yeah.
even with ADHD questions, I'm like, yeah, it used to be like that, but I figured out a way around it. And some people might think, well, then you don't have ADHD. And it's like, no, believe me, I do. I did. I lived that. That
Hmm.
was the old me. I grew and changed. I changed my mindset habits. I changed my environment. I changed what I ate.
Hmm.
And I changed my exercise, my sleep. I changed. I am not the person I was 5 years ago that would totally be like, yes, I am just always going to be RSD. I'm always going to not be able to focus. I'm always going to feel undermotivated. Um, I feel everyone who's there right now. I feel you. I lived through that for, geez, like 20 years.
Yeah.
From like when I first knew I had ADHD. And I feel like I kind of wish I'm glad I've got my diagnosis because it made sense with some things that were going on in my environment. And I still struggle with memory issues. I still struggle with other things. But moving through the stages that I've described, you can get to this healing stage. It is completely possible.
Yes.
Okay. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. Believe me, when I got off that magic pill, oh man, I thought my world was gonna fall apart. It's not easy. It took me over a year and a half to get to where I am right now with a lot of hard work and determination to get to this healing. But what me and Imran were describing right now are strategies, but they're strategies that show you're moving into the healing stage.
Yes. Thank you for that. That's a really nice summary of it all. And you're right, you had a hard journey, but you almost did it yourself. And that's the part that was the hard part. Doing it yourself is really hard until you get into a coaching environment, until you get, and I really value the fact that we had coaches, and I still do have a coach, and I do have a mentor, which is always really important to just give you that that little push when you need it.
Hmm.
The part about chipping away of RSD is really important. That's in the healing part of it all. I didn't know what healing was. I'd obviously heard about it. There's so many ways to heal. In a diagnosis journey, when you go through the first part, it's almost like a grief cycle. And there are 7 stages of grief.
Yeah.
My In the healing, I had to really go back to every scenario where the ADHD or jumpy brain part of it all. I had to go through a grief cycle of what if I wish I had known about this because my life would have been completely different. And you can sit there and you have to really go through that phase of being like, what if? What if I had known when I was a kid? What if
Yeah.
I had known it put my life into a completely different direction. And again, because my mind was uncaged at that point, I didn't ha necessarily have a coach. We talk about the different perspectives of you being on medication versus me not. I feel like I did it the even harder way. But in a lot of ways, it was easier because I didn't suddenly throw myself into being like, right, I have my diagnosis now. I want to go out and achieve straight away. I had to grieve. I had to grieve a lot of scenarios. I had to grieve family scenarios, things where I had really upset people. But when people had really upset me, when I was just trying to be nice and fit in, I had to go through my nice guy era. I had a lot of things to grieve, and I took a lot of time with it. I did it mostly by myself until I got into a coaching program where you come into them at the right time, I believe. You come into them at the point where you're like, right, I've done enough to know I
Hmm.
need help for the next stage. And for me, that healing part was being around others who are like, yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Yeah, me too. And I was like, okay, it blew my mind because, first of all, I invested in myself for the first time ever, really. Not like a course that I'd done, that I'd never finished. This one was about me and my mind and just finding out about a subject. And I was really happy that I had come across people who were in the Me Too era of, yes, we're all there. This is what I feel like. And that accelerated my healing because I was like, right, if a lot of people, and by percentage of however many people were in our Friday calls, by a
Yeah.
lot of people having this, I was like, right, let me go and research a little bit more about what people are doing to manage these symptoms. And the healing went on and on. But I do want to point out, like you said, it is a lot of work. I put it into the grief category, and you cannot put a time on grief, but you can put a purpose to grief, which is a really weird thing to say. The grief cycle is 7 stages, but do it with a bit of purpose. And I mentioned to you in our first discovery call when we did the discovery phase,
Yeah.
my psychiatrist said to me, right, let's go. Let's put you on a medication if you want to. Otherwise, you're going to have to do the holistic way. And my response was, I just want to be sad for a bit. I just want to really sit with what hasn't happened in my life to then really try and work out what I want in life going forward. So the healing phase for me was exactly that. It was a lot of grief, but grief is a great teacher as well. It shows you, it shows you that you might have had the capacity to do something different if you knew different. And this is all me and Christopher are doing. We're bringing awareness to this problem. We're bringing awareness to the whole topic of neurodivergence, which is only really just being accepted in the world and the workplace by policies and laws now. And we want to help you along on that journey of whether you want to sit in it or whether you want to go out and set and achieve. But there are so many phases that we've both been through, which is
Yeah.
why it's nice to speak about it. It's nice to be on the other side because we're both smiling. We haven't stopped
Yeah.
smiling in any of our episodes because we're not at that phase where in my grief stage, I used to sit like this a lot. I used to sit and be like, how has this even happened? What if? And all this sort of stuff. And now we're smiling. So really encourage you to just bring that into your focus and awareness. It's a long game, but it is one that you can master. You can master your emotions and you can master your time, but all in good time. Coaching as well, from me, from a perspective, is at some point, when we were in the coaching program, I decided I didn't need any more because it was at that time where I was like, I want to go and run with this now.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
we're fortunate enough to speak with Jake, so we can speak with Jake about it now. But coaching is a sort of short to medium term thing, um, because you want to get to a point where you have the tool, you have now put your toolkit front and center, and over a year of working with this, you can pick that from that toolkit and be like, right, I've got this now. I can go forward. I know exactly what these emotions are, etc. Is that is that? I know your healing phase, as you just mentioned before, I rambled on. Your healing phase was more to come down off of the medication. Could you talk more about that and what that felt like? Because I came from nothing from the other way, really.
Okay. Um, well, the realization helped get me off the magic pill. And then the healing part, that was hard. That was actually just like walking away from the magic pill and then working with Dr. LeGrand, um, and discovering like the first big thing I discovered during the healing phase was that I was doing too much. I was doing too much. And
Hmm.
so I had to simplify my life. And it was hard because even with the supplementation, based off of my blood work and stuff with Dr. LeGrand, even after 6 months, redoing my labs, not much changed. And that can be very hard to stomach because like you want to see a reflection of what you're experiencing in those labs. Um, but you have to trust the process too. And the thing that was unknown was like how long it was going to take for me, to get to where I am now. Like I didn't even know this was possible,
Hmm.
um, without a magic pill. And I can say for like you just have to trust the process, make tweaks, and keep moving forward. But the biggest part is when you move, like a lot of things we've described so far are good clues and indicators that you're on the healing path. The awakening path that I want to talk about now, that's the game changer. That's the like, holy cow experience. That's when you start transcending the label of ADHD to the point where you look around in your daily experience and you're like, am I really still ADHD? Because I
Hmm.
don't feel like it. But there's still things like you still forget things. There's still, but it's like your symptoms are so reduced that it almost feels like you don't have ADHD and you're just way positive. You're killing it. You're able to, you have dynamic focus. You can call your focus on whenever you want. Um,
Hmm.
but you have to take action. It's not easy. I'm not saying I just feel like focusing and I can do it. No, I still have to like be like, come on, Christopher, we got to do this. Um, but in that awakening, like I literally, I can look at people, other people with ADHD and tell you exactly what stage they're in now. Because I'm at this sixth stage. Maybe there's a seventh stage. I don't know.
Hmm.
But in the sixth stage, awakening, you start to feel like, am I really ADHD? Because you've mitigated your symptoms so much through the healing that it's not messing up your life as much. It's really reduced.
Yes. I would say in my case, I still know that I have ADHD symptoms. Um, but what I have is a powerful resource in a mentor. Um, and that's really given me the clarity to know how and when to pull in my toolkit because it's giving me another purpose. The ADHD symptoms and what we're helping people to try and reduce are always going to be there because
Yep.
there are so many external factors that can drop that on its head and it can kind of put you back a few steps. However, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, if there is a toolkit that you can pull upon, if you have that momentum, if you're not burnt out by just thinking and thinking, that part is also really important. I generally found that if I was thinking about too many things, I'd note down how many times I'd think about it, and then I'd outsource it. For me, cleaning and organizing was a real big energy drain. So I was like, right, I'm gonna give this a go for a couple of weeks. I'm like really in balance with what I've got going on in my life. And I noticed I just wasn't enjoying it. At which point we work out that from our sort of makeup and our general makeup, what we enjoy, we really enjoy. But there's parts of life that need to be done and completed. So I actually outsourced my cleaning. And I'm okay to say online, I have a cleaner. And that part was such a huge weight off my shoulders because it's not that I was lazy to do it, I just didn't enjoy it. and it took too much of my energy to then be able to plan something else in my day. So I was like, right, I've given this a good go, genuinely given it a good go. And now that I have a cleaner, I realized I didn't give it a good go because the cleaner is the expert, and how she cleans was nowhere near what I was doing. So I actually find it fascinating. The way she cleans was is to pretty much bring everything out clean, put it back into place. Whereas I was cleaning around things,
Ah,
bumping into things, right? And again,
she has
this
a
is
good
more like
system.
there's a system. There's all, and I'm quite observant, so I was just like, oh, how did you do that so quickly? And she was just like, simple. I take everything out, I clean, I put it back. I was like, no way. You know that, but I outsourced it, and for me to outsource it, I learned something in that. Now, in the times that she's not here and stuff, I'm able to do that, and it doesn't feel as heavy. I mean, I don't do as much as her, but whatever area that needs to be done, I use that philosophy of, oh, okay, let me take it all out, let me clean properly, and then put it all back. I didn't know that that was a thing. I mean, maybe showing a bit of my sheltered life, but again, that was more coming from a healing place of starting from zero. And I was okay with it. I was okay to be told that you have no idea what you're doing when it comes to cleaning. And I was like, okay, you're right, I don't. But then that's also my toolkit. The way I've built my toolkit is I will give it a go. I know I'm kind enough to say to myself, let's plan it. This is what the planning looks like. I'm going to put this time aside to do X. And I will give myself a couple of weeks to actually give it a go and mark. It's like one of those things when you go to the gym and you're on a program and you're marking as you're going along what's happening over the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And I always used to write down how I felt during a set and how that weight felt or how that movement felt. So I was kind of in that place to be like, right, I'm going to give something a go now. But I'm rather than saying, yes, I've completed the task, I want to write down how I felt
Hmm.
about doing that task. And that's where a lot of my emotional regulation came in because I was just like, I still don't feel good about this, right? What's the next step? Because there is a next step. Let's go find someone else who can do it and teach me. So in essence, I'm paying a cleaner to teach me because I'm observing, right? And that's part of my toolkit. Outsourcing is part of my toolkit. I'm okay with admitting that because I can't do everything by myself. And I don't want to do everything by myself because I want my energy to be going towards other parts that I have now prioritized, that are now part of a life plan rather than just reacting to things. Um, so yeah, I don't know if I know you just peeked up when I said about the cleaner thing, but do you have any examples like that where you thought you knew something but you didn't, and it was just weighing down on your energy sources?
Hmm.
It could be the cleaning thing. It could be something else at work.
Oh, okay. Give me a second. I
You
wasn't
got it.
prepared for that, Imran.
Sorry.
But it's a good question. It's a good question. I would say a good example is at work, I write down notes and like actions for my meetings all in one notebook. Whereas before, I was just any piece of paper I was writing it down, it was all over the place.
Hmm.
So by
Hmm.
going to one place and having a simple process that I write my notes from the meeting, I write the actions taken, I come back and then I highlight different colors to show me if I need to do it today, delegate it, or move it around. And then I set a tab for the beginning of the day. And at the end of the day, I flip back the pages to the beginning of the day. And then I kind of like start working through my items or create a backlog that I then schedule to do. Whereas
Amazing.
before it was just like, okay, there's a task in Outlook, there's a task over here. Wait, which notebook or what? Or I wouldn't balance my energy right, get to the end of the day and be like, man, I'm too exhausted to look back through my stuff. That
And
same thing goes true for setting up before the night before. I
yes,
normally I do my supplements. Um, I load the dishwasher, do my supplements, and then take out the trash before we get the kids ready for bedtime. Because if
Hmm.
I wait until after bedtime, I lay with my kids till they fall asleep, my cortisol level freaking crashes and it's so hard to do anything. So I know
Hmm.
I have to do that before. So, like, the big thing here with the healing is it's creating structures to limit your cognitive overload and
Yes.
save your cognitive energy throughout the day. And you can do that with systems and structures. And I mean, just like anybody with ADHD, if they have a checklist in front of them of what they need to do, we can knock it out of the park.
Hmm.
If it's clearly defined, we will knock it out of the park.
That's the part that we've talked about that a lot. It has to be clearly defined. You have to know what
Yes.
your before steps
Small
are and
chunks,
after steps.
manageable
Yeah.
steps.
Yeah. Manageable steps. I didn't realize until I went through the mentorship and coaching that my task lists were actually impossible
Yep.
because I'd write such high level statements that I'd have to think about. By the time I got to the task list, I'd have to think about it to break it down. So my task list would be five things. I'd then have to sit there and break it down, and it would take me so much more energy just to break those five tasks down, where all I had to do was write something more meaningful. And I was like, oh, I've spent years doing this, and no wonder I didn't achieve all the tasks because my tasks were rubbish.
Yep.
I wrote them down rubbish. It was garbage in, garbage out. But we laugh about it now. We are in a healing phase where we're creating these toolkits. Not everything has to happen overnight, is what I
No.
always say. When you're learning more about your mind and your body and your energy, everything has to come at a pace that you can manage. Because what we definitely don't promote is burnout. What we definitely don't promote is you have to just knock that, like you said, knock it out of the park. But let's do it with a bit of balance. Let's do it where in your day where you have high moments and low moments, you can manage them. And coming from a go slow mode, ramping that up is a lot easier than just being on the go all the time because
Yes.
being on the go all the time is at some point you will hit a brick wall and recovering from those is almost like recovering from an operation. I would go as far as to say that when you hit a brick wall, it's like recovering from an operation, but because we've always been designed to be on an absolute go blast mode, what does that even look like? And it was actually a funny part of my my healing process because I got injured playing sports when I was younger and I was flying high before I got injured. And what the actual healing part of that required from me was to do simple, small steps day by day. And I hadn't processed it, I hadn't spoken it out. So I was thinking I could get back quicker to the playing field. And what happened was every time I got back to the playing field too soon, I got injured with something else, and then something else, and then something else. And
Mm.
my whole world crumbled. I realized now, at my age now, I didn't have a toolkit. I didn't understand task management of how the importance of how small things can be and the impact of them. And I also didn't have a mentor telling me about this stuff to be like, everything doesn't have to be achieved in one day. You got injured. It was a pretty bad injury. Why do you even want to come back to the playing field? And as I grew older, I researched athletes who got injured and what they did in their downtime. Yes, they were keeping themselves fit, but they chose a different activity that helped them grow in another way. And that's the part that I was missing. So in my grief cycle, I was really like, okay, what if that had happened? But now that I know, which is the big part of me, is like, uh-oh, now you know.
Yeah.
Going forward, even with this and creating this platform, I'm doing it in such a nicer, balanced way that I've learned from those old experiences, which is also part of the healing process. Have you actually learned from what you did in the past, or are you just susceptible to making the same mistakes? And I think Christopher and I will be able to pick that out quite quickly if you have
Oh
done
yeah.
repeat mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost it's almost overwhelming in the awakening state when I get on forums and Facebook and I see where everybody else is struggling and it's like
Hmm.
I know exactly how to get them out of there. I know exactly like but it's like I can tell them till I'm blue in the face, but it's like it's up to them to make the decision and take the action.
Yeah.
Um, it's fun being in the awakened state, but there's also a responsibility there to tell the story, but then
Hmm.
also be compassionate to everyone else that's not there yet.
Yeah.
But set the example that you can achieve it. Because if you would have asked me 5 years ago if I could do ADHD without a supplement, or if I saw people doing it with just like natural supplements, I'd be like, there's no way. No way, man. This magic pill, this is
Hmm.
awesome. I'm killing it. I'm doing all the things. Yeah, there's some setbacks, a lot of them. It's kind of destroying my family life. Um, but like, I just thought it wasn't possible. You know why? Because I wanted a quick fix.
Yeah.
We are programmed for the quick fix. That's the problem. It
Hmm.
takes grit, effort, and energy to get where you want to be, to evolve and awaken
Hmm.
into the person you want to become. There's no quick fix, there's no magic pill. It's time, energy, and effort.
That's beautiful, man. Yes, I totally agree. The awakening part is it can almost be the bitter pill that you should have taken a lot earlier. And just taking time and understanding a lot about your mind, what has gone right in your time of awakening, what has gone wrong, will really help you shape going forward. But one thing that I picked up on, and as we spoke, even when we were in the group together, I think there's a big cultural problem with ADHD and ADHD medication. I
Hmm.
think in the US, like you mentioned, it's a go-to method to be like, right, you fit the bill for ADHD. This is what we have to fix it. And it's that medication route. And you having been on it versus me not being on it, because I just didn't succumb to it. I was like,
I'm
"Oh,
glad.
I
I'm so
just didn't."
glad.
Yeah, no. But I did pay a price in that I paid a price of time because I was always wanting that higher focus. I was always wanting to achieve things. But in the time it took me to build my toolkit, I realized that the focus can come. I was just writing down bad tasks. So now that I write down better tasks and more meaningful tasks, I still achieve them and I don't have I have to have it in my energy window, right? I
Okay.
have to do it if I have a big meal, I know that after that my body's processing food, good food, etc. So I don't deliberately plan things for that part of the days, right? We eat at different parts of the day. But in the times that I'm not, and my body is not consumed with consuming something else, and I've written meaningful tasks,
Hmm.
I achieve them. And right now, I'm on no supplements. And I'm actually on very little stimulants in terms of coffee and tea as well. So it is achievable. Does every day look the same? No. And I don't want it to. I don't want every day to be like absolutely smashed that. I'd want progress, yes. But I've given myself that grace and space to be like every day doesn't have to be a monumental day because at some point the momentum will speak for itself. And what I also note down at the end of every day what's gone well, not what's gone wrong, because we wear that as a badge, right? I
Yeah.
always write down what's gone well. And at the end of the week, I read through what's happened. You can call it journaling. I just make quick notes on my phone. I've got a task in my calendar to say, what are you grateful for today? What can you write down today that you read at the end of the week to be like, wow, that's really amazing. And that's what I do. And that also adds to my toolkit of just write down whatever happened in your day at the end of the week, read it. If you do everything with purpose and have good task management, which is what me and Christopher
Hmm.
teach, your days and weeks will change, your months will change and your years looking forward will change.
Exactly. Um, and things will come up. And like if you don't recapitulate your energy from past things that you've accomplished, like that happened to me, I think probably one of my biggest shorts lately. I talk about ADHD and addiction, and it
Hmm.
hit me while I was mowing the grass. And I was like, holy crap, Christopher, you got off of nicotine by yourself,
Hmm.
and I got off of stimulants. And people might say, well, the stimulant you're on or stimulants aren't addicting. They are. Like,
Yes.
I lived the life of what an addict felt and the voices in your head that are just like, just take that pill and it'll all be better. Just take
hmm
that pill.
hmm
Like it's real. And they don't talk about it. I'm probably going to reach out to my last doctor that prescribed me stuff
Yeah.
and talk to her about that. Um, but yeah,
Like I said,
man.
it's a huge topic. With the US, from what I've seen, every time I've been to the US, and maybe you might not see it because it's your sort of day-to-day life, but I remember going to the US for holidays. I'll sit and watch TV or any sort of movie or whatever, and there will be at least six advertisements for medication. I even had to sit back and think, I was like, I've got to start counting these now because I don't think I remember how many times there was a solution for something that I had never thought that was a problem, but there is in the US. So you're doing an amazing job speaking up about this, and you'll face some hard pushback because you're fighting you're fighting an awareness problem in itself as well. We're bringing awareness to this issue, but you might have a bigger problem with the awareness of just you don't have to take the medication part, which I wish you luck. I can always come on this and talk about it from a cultural different perspective and a non-medication perspective. But you flag that flag really well, man, and I wish you keep going with this, and there will be enough people who will come off of those and live a balanced life, which I know you can teach them.
Well, I think a goal I'd like to do is try to get connected with other people with ADHD
hmm
that want to talk from different countries because it's been a phenomenal experience learning how it is from your perspective
hmm
versus mine. And I'd love to hear from others. I'd be happy to bring you on the
Oh, I would too.
podcast
Yeah.
and talk about what it is like culturally in your country when it comes to mental health, ADHD, um, any of the neurodivergent things. Um, because I think with that, we can find similar threads and start like a global awakening with this.
Amazing.
Um, and it's so funny. I find it hilarious that I'm saying this right now. 5 years ago, I would have just never, never would have thought I'm where I'm at with my
hmm
life, with my
Yeah.
mindset, and what I'm doing.
No, absolutely. And you should keep that going as well. You're doing an amazing job. And I look forward to being part of that process. And I want to reiterate that as well. If there are people listening from different countries, I'm in the UK, Christopher's in the US. It would be really interesting to find out about the perspective of just the medication route, but also on the ground level, what
Mhm.
it's like to go through the diagnosis process and how you all feel about it with the support structures you may or may not have, which is why a lot of people are going online looking for this help, because we did it, and that's why we want to extend that and pay it forward in a way.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Imram. I really value our conversations. Thank you, everyone else, for listening today on the Awaken Divergence podcast, where we went through stage 5 healing and stage 6 awakening. Believe me, there's more to come,
hmm
and I will keep you guys informed via my Instagram account on when the next episode is and who the special guest is. Thank you, Imram.
Thank you, Christopher. Speak soon.
See ya.